الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Respected scholars, brothers, principals, and brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The theme of tonight's or the conference is on spirituality and student leadership. And this reminds me of what Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, gazing into the distant future, he said, there will come a time when your religion will be like a piece of hot coal in the palm of your hand, and you will not be able to hold it. When his companions asked him, does it mean that we would be smaller in number? He said, no, we would be larger in number, larger than before, but we will be as powerless as foam on the ocean waves. There are many interpretations of this particular event, but the most sensible and logical one refers to our powerlessness due to stagnant Muslim scholarship. In the time of Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wassalam, answers were given on every material respect, both matters pertaining to business, matters pertaining to leadership, matters pertaining to one's personal life, and such like. This was the original structure of knowledge. And as we fast forward to the great jurists and scholars like Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Malik, Imam Shafi, and Imam Abu Hanbal, a span of 150 years from the time of the demise of Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam to 220 roughly in the time of Imam Abu Hanbal, by which time the saying of Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam that in the exercise of reason, when a decision is taken and it is subsequently found that the decision was wrong, you will still get a reward for it. And if you exercise reason and make a decision, and subsequently it is found that you were right, you will get a double reward, not only in this world, but in the hereafter as well. Now, these great jurists and scholars set the platform for what was then ilmul bayan, the knowledge of the text, unadulterated by the human mind, ilmul irfan, the knowledge of that which is pertaining to the akhirah, and knowledge, ilmul burhan, that is the knowledge of science through reason. Ilmul bayan tells you everything that Allah Almighty has given as pure text, as our students initially illustrated to you the conversation. Ilmul irfan is telling you the secrets of the unseen world in the same text, in the same verse. And Ilmul Burhan is telling you the secrets of the seen world, the role of mountains, of oceans, and rivers. And in this way, there was an ecosystem, ecologically connected, holistically, and a multidisciplinary approach. And this platform, which constituted the beginnings of the doctrine of double truth, which is pure truth, the revelation, and reason to understand the revelation. Revelation was the master, reason was the servant. And in this way, we found a second wave of great scholars like Ibn Sina, Ibn Rushd, Ibn Arabi, Ibn Farabi, Ibn Khaldun, and all of these scholars set the platform to ensure that there was a fertilization of the intellectual minds of the people that set another foundation from Baghdad to Spain. When Salahuddin entered Baghdad in 1171, the public library had 500,000 volumes of books. These books were not some copies from some other civilizations. They constituted the lectures, the minutes, the notes, the ta'liq of the students who used to have disputations on Fridays in the presence of their professors. The students of law would raise questions, and respectfully they would distill the answers. The professor would only intervene to give a final solution. Such were these volumes that they fertilized the minds of societies that came into contact with them. And eventually, when they expanded, incidentally, Mosaic law, Musa alayhi salam, his teachings remained in a distance of 100 kilometers for 30 years. The knowledge of the Sharia in the same period of 30 years extended to 1 million square kilometers. To give you an indication of the explosion of knowledge that the doctrine of double truth had presented to society. And we had the beginnings of the great Andalusian civilization. So we see a kind of a resurrection of the original structure of knowledge based on the doctrine of double truth and the ancient knowledge of the Greeks, like Aristotle. These were not simply transmitted, they were synthesized, filtered, and purified through the spirit of the Holy Quran. And then in turn, they were translated from Greek into Arabic and from Arabic into Latin and made available to the centers of Europe, which was at that point in time widely acknowledged to be in the Dark Ages. So what we saw is this beginning of the transmission through synthesization of knowledge for these scholars like Roger Bacon, Thomas Bacon, Descartes, and of course the great scholar of the Catholic world, Thomas Aquinas. But I would like to point out one very important point, in that whilst this doctrine of double truth, revelation and reason excited them, they decided to keep the Bible as the revelation and the reason that was advanced by the Muslim scholars as the basis. And that's where the Western world faltered, because the Bible is not a revelation. It came much afterwards. It's contaminated by the human mind. With great respect, the teachings were, in a way, quite fine for morals and ethics, but it was not a revelation. And therefore, when reason that they adopted interrogated the revelation of the Bible, there were many inconsistencies and contradictions. And then, as we move further into the 16th and 17th century, reason ran away. Reason could not tolerate revelation. And in this way, Western circular systems emerged without the benefit and guidance of revelation. And therefore, reason has become the master. God was separated. Morality was separated from ethics. There was disenchantment with nature, desacralization of values, and deconsecration of politics. And now we see the mess that that particular world has made to the entire world today. But on the other side, the Muslim scholars also made a fatal mistake. And that is that they abandoned reason and stuck to revelation. And by doing so, over a period of time, because of the Mongol invasion, the burning of libraries, the burning of great scholars, but Waqf too also played a role because the Waqif, as a private Waqf, through succession planning, would insist that his son or his descendant would then remain and succeed him, who never had the same passion. And we saw then colleges like masjids and madrasas, which were quite frankly universities with faculties. The quality of this was degrading. And we then found that ilmul bayan got separated from ilmul irfan, and ilmul irfan got separated from ilmul burhan. And in this way, for the next 4 centuries, Muslim scholarship started stagnating. And then these three foundations of knowledge not only became strangers to each other, but hostile to each other. So there was a swap. The Western world stuck to reason without revelation. The Muslim world stuck to revelation without reason. And in this way, both have led to the situation that we are in today, and therefore this explains the problem of Muslim scholars is how do we resurrect the original structure of knowledge? And I would like to just mention 5 or 6 maqasid of the Sharia. If we stick to this maqasid, the first is the sanctity of human life, haqqul haya, the need to fulfill organic needs like food and water. Without that, you can't even go into the second. The provisions to ensure we are ecologically connected. وَلَا تُفْسِدُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ بَعْدِ إِصْلَاحِهَا. Allah Almighty says, do not corrupt the earth after we have set it in order. In this manner, we paid more attention to basic requirements without necessarily putting our house in order. The fulfillment of organic needs will maybe sustain your life, but there's instinctive needs as well. And instinctive needs is to have marriage, companion, partners, love and affection. So Allah Almighty has made, in the broad sense, haqqun nasl, the sanctity of family and community. There are laws and directions given between family, the laws of inheritance, laws relating to waqf and such like. And because you are in possession, Allah Almighty gives us the third objective in the broadest sense, haqqul mal, which is the sanctity of private property. Allah Almighty permits us to have the spirit of acquisitiveness, to acquire, to trade, and such like, for need fulfillment. But if need fulfillment is not regulated, need fulfillment evolves into greed. To prevent greed, Allah Almighty has institutionalized the act of giving, which is zakat, sadaqah, lillah, and fitra. In this manner, we maintain the mizan, we maintain the balance. We remove riba from transactions because this in turn impedes economic distributive justice. We move away from speculative transactions. We move away from those monopolistic or oligopolic structures and such like. We have a complete economic system that is organically connected. And then Allah Almighty gives us the fourth objective, haqqul huriyat, which is the sanctity of responsible government. In other words, the sovereignty belongs to Allah Almighty alone. Did not Hazrat Abu Bakr say, obey me so long as I obey Allah? The sovereignty precedes the state. The state itself has the executive arm. It has the legislative arm and the judicial arm. And each one has complete direction to ensure that Allah's commands are fulfilled. We are not a theocracy, it is a government of Allah by people for Allah. How do we fulfill this? Allah Almighty gives us the fifth objective, which is Haqqul Karama, sanctity of human dignity. In this sanctity, every human being is born with dignity. وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ إِنَّ أَكْرَمَكُمْ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ أَتْقَاكُمْ. The noblest of you in the sight of Allah is he who is best in conduct. In this particular way, students that acquired knowledge in the time of the companions, in the time of Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, in the time of the great scholars, they were respecting each other. There was a time when one great professor of Ibn Juwayni, who in turn was the professor of Imam Ghazali, he was saying that when he started, he was on the last line. And when the time came for questions, he raised a question, and there was a debate and discussion in the disputation. He says the next day, the student who was on the front line came and sat with him in the back. When the professor asked him, how come you change your seat? He said, I would like to be here because he deserves my seat in the front line. Such was the respect of these students. And these are disputations and discussions, even if they disagreed, but it was all part of a flint to contribute to the promotion of knowledge. And finally, Haqqul Ilm, that was the final, the sanctity of knowledge. Now, this sanctity of knowledge is not informational knowledge. It's transformational knowledge from the Quran. وَلَوْ أَنَّمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ مِنْ شَجَرَةٍ أَقْلَامٌ وَالْبَحْرُ يَمُدُّهُ. Allah Almighty says, if the forests were pens and the ocean was ink, and you add another 7 oceans, they would still not exhaust the meaning of the words of Allah. Such is the power of the Quran. So it is people with transformational knowledge that became transformational leaders. These were the persons that came into positions of government and responsibility. With Haqqul Huriyat, they were able to resolve disputes pertaining to business and transactions, to create stability in society, so that Haqqul Nasl was maintained. The sustainability, political, economic sustainability was maintained, and that in turn fulfilled the very first objective, which is Haqqul Haya. So we have a beautiful, ecologically connected, integrated system. And I would like to say to all of the principals, and particularly the students, that your starting point is Salah. Because Salah holds the two worlds together. The beginning of Salah is wudu, and the end is sujood. The terrestrial world and the celestial world is bound together in Salah. From this, the whole mind opens up. And this is where leadership prevails. There is a time when Nabi Muhammad ﷺ had said that if Allah Almighty wishes to punish a people, He does not remove knowledge from the hearts of the people. Rather, He removes knowledgeable people from the people, so that people in their ignorance elect ignorant leaders, who in turn mislead themselves and misguide others. And that's this problem of societies in the democratic system around the world, including our country. We'll probably be witnessing that in the following months to come. And I'd like to conclude by saying, when the angels asked Allah Almighty, you created insan, what will be his greatest weakness? Allah Almighty says his greatest weakness will be that he will pursue wealth at the expense of his health. And thereafter he will try to regain his health at the expense of his wealth. And in doing so, he'll be so attached to the past and so concerned of the future that he will not live in the present. And he will live as if he will never die, and he will die as if he never lived. So remember, brothers, those of you that time you have on your hands, and I'm so happy, so delighted, the Global Association of Islamic Schools, you're moving in the right direction. Be assured of our fullest support. And I would like to see this around the world so that students make your target that by 2024, end of the year, you have no less than 10 million students from around the world. Inshallah. Shukran. Assalamu alaikum.